So the myth we're going to look at today is about the nativity and the nativity scene, really, I guess is a way to look at it, where it was at, how it took place, that kind of stuff. Now, we kind of talked a little bit about this last Wednesday, and we've kind of talked a little bit about it in one of the other videos when I was talking about the animals and whether or not there were actually animals there. But I really want to dive into it a little bit more today because I think it really... I don't know, I think it's a really cool thing to look at and a really important thing maybe to even understand and know. So, the Bible, like I mentioned, doesn't actually ever really make reference to where Jesus was born. Was he born in a stable? Was he born in a barn? Was he born in a cave? Was he born in a house? It doesn't actually ever make reference to it. As a matter of fact, here's the only reference, or here's where the reference would be. It would be in Luke chapter 2, verse 7. Here's what it says. She gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available to them. Now, how we expect that to read, because this is how we've always known it. This is what we've always grown up with. This is what we've always been taught. It was in a manger. There was animals. It was in a barn. This is how we would expect this to read instead. We'd expect it to say this. She gave birth to her firstborn son in the middle of a barn surrounded by hay and many animals. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because the local hotel and housing was not available because it was already booked up. That's how we expect that to read, right? As a matter of fact, we almost would expect there to be something about, and the innkeeper said, nope, sorry, no room. But if you want, you can, stay in our barn. That's better than nothing, right? Because that's the story we've heard, right? There was the innkeeper, and the innkeeper offered the barn, the stable to him. Yeah, it's not in the Bible anywhere. Matter of fact, it makes zero reference to that whatsoever. The only thing it does say, and in the older translation it says there was no room for them in the inn. However, that word in Hebrew, and we're not going to get that much into it, but it doesn't mean hotel. There are several different things it could mean. One would be kind of like a hotel, I guess. It would be like a community housing kind of thing. It would basically just be like roof and some like poles and stuff. And sometimes towns might have something like that you go into, and then you just, if you could find a space on the ground, you just took it. That could be what it's referring to. And maybe even that could be part of it. Or it could be when it says inn, or, there was no room for them, and what the Hebrew word is for inn there could mean the guest room in somebody's house. And so what this could be saying is that there was no room for them in the guest room at their family's house, because their family probably wasn't very proud and wasn't very happy with Mary and Joseph. See, the first century Jewish world was a very honor-based culture. You were put on a higher pedestal if you brought honor to yourself and to your family. You were thrown aside if you dishonored your family and yourself. It's actually very similar to what the Japanese culture is even today in the world. But that was the culture there. It was a very honor and shame-based culture. And so when Mary gets pregnant, before she gets married, that's not good. It looks like she did some, certain activities that, lead to baby making. And before she got married, which was not cool. That was not okay. It's very frowned upon. It's very shameful. But not only that, the fact that Joseph didn't divorce her or cast her aside or even have her stoned, which could have been done, he stayed with her. And so now Joseph's guilty by association. Now it looks like Joseph and Mary partook in certain activities that brought about a baby before they were married. And so their family was probably like, yeah, no, sorry, not staying here. We don't want to be associated with you, because if we associate with you, then we're guilty by association. And so Mary and Joseph would have been very, very much on the outside. Now, what this could mean, and I like the way the verse translates it here, is that there was no lodging available to them. That could be both. Could be that there was no room for them at the local area where people would congregate to stay the night if they were traveling. It also probably means that there was no room for them at their guest house, their family's guest room. So the family didn't want them. Now, the question is, was that there was too many other people there in the room? Or was it, and probably likely, that they didn't want them there? There was no room, not necessarily in physical space, but for their presence to be there. And so where they most likely had the baby was, and this is probably what happened, is the family said, look, you're family, so we're not going to kick you on the street, but you're not staying up here with us. And so they were sent down to the lower level, the lower room of the house, kind of almost like the basement. And there is probably where they had the baby. And the reason that there was a manger there, or a feed trough, is because a lot of times the animals, if they had animals, would have been kept down there on cold nights or rainy nights or stuff like that where you don't want them outside. So was there animals around? We've already talked about this. We don't really know. Very easily could have been. There very easily could not have been. It could be very likely that Joseph said, yeah, get on out of here, guys. We're not sleeping in the same room with a bunch of cows and donkeys. But the point is that it's not so much, was it a barn? Was it a cave? Was it a lower room? Was it just out in the courtyard? It doesn't really matter. That's not the point that Luke is trying to make. It doesn't matter to Luke where exactly it was. What matters to Luke is the fact that there was no room for them. Maybe it was physical space. I imagine it was more, there was no room for them because of who they were, because of what they'd done. And so when Jesus, when the Son of God, God himself enters into the world, it shouldn't be a surprise to us that there was no room for him. There was no room. People couldn't get over the fact of what was happening, and they couldn't make space in their lives, in the busyness of their lives, in the hustle and bustle of their lives, in their stature, their stamina, their social ranking of their lives. They couldn't make room for God because it might jeopardize who they are. It might jeopardize how other people saw them. And that's the point I think Luke is trying to make. Doesn't matter where Jesus was necessarily born. It's the fact that when God entered into this world, when God came in the form of a baby to save us from our sins, to save humanity, to save the world didn't make room for him. It doesn't seem that surprising. And so I guess here's the question, here's your challenge. Do you make room for God? Especially now, especially at Christmas, as we're talking about all of this and we're really looking into this, are you making room for God and for Jesus in your life, in your holiday, in the things that you do in your everyday life? And I hope that question, or the answer to that is yes. And if it's not a resounding yes, then think about ways that you could make more room. How can you open up more space in your life so that God can come in and fill your entire life and your entire being and be the most important thing in your life? All right, I will see you guys all tonight, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.